Thank you. The time is 5:03, so I'll call this meeting to order. This is the Environmental Services Committee meeting for Thursday, February 5th, 2026. I'll remind everyone that this meeting will be streamed live and recorded for public viewing on the YouTube channel. I'll remind the committee to declare any pecuniary interest as they arise. We have nothing under section 3, so I'll go to section 4. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wolvett, seconded by Member DeVlute, that the minutes be adopted by the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee, that those confidential minutes of the closed session of the committee remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And that is for our December 1st Environmental Services Committee. Are there any questions for those minutes? Seeing nothing, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. We have nothing under section 5, so I'll go on to accounts. I have a motion moved by Committee Member DeVlute, seconded by Councilor Wolfett, that the accounts as listed be received by the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee. That's the water list for November and December 2025, the sewer list for November and December 2025, and the environmental list for November and December of 2025. Are there any questions for staff from the committee on those items? Start on my right. Nothing. Mayor Atkinson?
No questions, just a comment. I like the layout of that presentation. It's very easy to read compared to some of what we had previously. So kudos to staff for doing that.
Everybody? Call for vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. On to staff reports. 7.1. I have a motion moved by Councilor Wolvett, seconded by Committee Member DeVlute, that the report by Jessica, Executive Assistant of Finance, dated January 28th, 2026, regarding the 2026 spring garbage newsletter be endorsed by the Environmental Services Committee and forwarded to Council for consideration. And that was a PDF attachment there in the agenda. Any questions about that or additions for that newsletter? See nothing? All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Jessica, for putting that together. 7.2. I have a motion moved by Committee Member DeVlute, seconded by Councilor Wolvett, that the report submitted by Paul Da Silva, Director of Public Works, dated January 28th, 2026, regarding the feasibility study for the Wyoming Water Distribution Center system improvements be received, and that the proposal submitted by AECOM in the amount of $18,403 plus HST be approved. Any questions, or did anyone add to that first?
Sure, through the chair. I'll start with the financial section, because I can't remember if I had advised the committee, and I'm going to say no, that we did not receive the Health and Safety Water Stream grant. So that was the grant that we applied for to start replacing the vast majority of our asbestos cement water mains within the village. However, we got that information after we submitted the budget. So technically the budget's already been approved, using some of that grant to offset those costs. So we still have $335,000 as a line item in the capital budget for water main improvements in Wyoming, but could be anywhere. And then I also believe I advised the committee that laws under their new master plan that they're currently updating are no longer going to be acquiring the Wyoming standpipe. So that was kind of, we were looking long-term, we weren't going to have the standpipe anymore. It wasn't going to be part of our distribution system. So that gave us an opportunity to up the pressure in Wyoming, because currently we can't do it right now, or else the standpipe will overfill. So given that they're no longer going to acquire that standpipe, I want to go back to the drawing board and look at what can we do to increase the pressure in the village. We do get complaints about this. There are options that we do have. So that's the purpose of undertaking this study. They'll look at a variety of options. One is, do we even need the standpipe? The answer is probably yes, because of fire flows. Another option is to put in an altitude valve. So what that would do is kind of regulate, we could boost the pressure within Wyoming, but it would only allow so much water to go into the standpipe. And then would use a booster pump to kick it back into the system so that we could turn the standpipe over. And then the third thing they're going to look at is just a new elevated tower. So I think this is going to be a really good exercise for us to go through to see what can we do to increase pressure here in Wyoming.
Thanks, Mr. Silva. Are there any questions for that staff report or the additions there? So
The only question I would have, you want to increase that pressure, are all the pipes in Wyoming, will they meet that new higher standard continuous pressure? Or do we have lines that got to be replaced? I think we do, don't we?
So through the chair, that's a really good question. Those water mains have been in the ground for a long time. They're rated for a higher pressure, but realistically, once we do boost the pressure a little bit, it could result in more breaks. But we do have a plan to start tackling some of those older water mains a little bit more vigorously in terms of replacement. So hopefully, within the next 5 to 10 years, we have a majority of them replaced. But if we do boost the pressure, I would imagine we'll have a few more breaks a year at least.
So as you're redoing the streets here in Wyoming, we've done quite a few of them. Are you replacing them water lines at that time, correct?
Correct.
Are you finding them to be in bad shape or not?
Through the chair, not necessarily in bad shape, especially the asbestos cement water ones. They're undersized, a lot of them, so we're not getting our fire flows. And then it just makes sense as we're doing these reconstructions to replace water mains so that, we're not having to go back there 10 or 15 years down the road and rip up the road to replace. So I wouldn't say they're in terrible shape necessarily, but they're certainly targeted for.
My final question will be, the water lines in Wyoming versus the water lines out in Plympton. No, I know that, they did the sewers not that many years ago. I'm not sure if they replaced water lines at the same time out in that whole area where I live out there. Assuming they probably did, they had the roads all opened. I just don't know.
So through the chair, the water mains in former Plympton Township are in very good condition. Most of them are PVC. The only problem, as you're aware, is that poly pipe that we have on Egremont Road that we keep returning to and replacing all those joints. But other than that, everything's in very good condition.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. De Silva. With your adjustments that you want to do to this report, are you looking at what timeline are you looking to get that completed? And if we move ahead, when would you look at this project?
So through the chair, I have talked to the consultant. They have the time to do this fairly quickly. Depending on the results of that feasibility study, I'll bring it back to the committee. If the booster pump and altitude valve are a viable option, and that's what we want to do, I think we could turn that around within, say, a year. Other options like putting in a new elevated tower is obviously a lot more work and a lot more money. So we'd have to really think about how badly we wanted to do that. Best case scenario, we could probably look at constructing something next year, perhaps.
As you brought up the concern about the water within Wyoming proper, we do get contacted all the time about it, the pressure being low.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Especially the mayor and the director of public works.
And it's just a quick question. I remember a few meetings ago, there was development. I can't remember, I'm not getting my locations spot. I might be in the wrong place. There was discussions of a potential cost sharing to a certain extent for servicing that development, but also improving pressure. Is this would that fit in here? Or is this totally separate?
It's separate because so what we would be doing with that project is bringing in more flow. So pressure is not always totally related to flow. Although it helps, more pressure, you can get more flow. The problem is we don't have enough fire flow down in kind of our, south of the CN tracks is where we kind of struggle right now. So we still need additional water capacity to that area. But just improving the pressure in the whole system would be beneficial as well.
Any other questions? Call for the vote, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. On to 7.3. I have a motion moved by committee member DeVlute, seconded by Councillor Wolvette. That the report submitted by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated January 28th, 2026, regarding the Plympton wastewater treatment plant, headworks, SCADA, PLC, and blower replacement project be received, and that the committee endorses proceeding with the full scope of the Plympton wastewater treatment plant headworks, instrumentation, aeration blower, and associated electrical upgrades in 2026, as outlined in this report. Is there anything you want to touch on?
Sure. First, sorry for the long motion there.
Lots of fun words. These committee meetings.
Yeah,
Easy ones.
I thought given the length and the amount of reading in this report, if the committee wants, I can kind of provide a brief summary of where we started and how we've gotten here, if it would be helpful. Okay. So even before I arrived, this particular project was identified in the master plan to increase capacity at the Plympton wastewater treatment plant. And the original scope of that project was to replace the influent pumps at the plant, the bar screens, and the grit removal system. So that's how this project first started. So when I came on board, we kicked it off almost right away and started through the detailed design phase. Pretty soon we realized that the PLC, which is kind of the brains of the operation, was obsolete. Jacobs has a hard time procuring parts for the PLC, even relying on eBay at times. So we brought back a report to this committee where we provided a few options. One is, well, let's try and kick the can down the road. You know, someday it could completely not function anymore and we'd be in bad shape. Second option was we can put kind of a pony PLC in, but we're still left with the fact that the main one is not really, it's getting old and it's becoming obsolete, or we could just replace it. So we decided to replace it, as well as the SCADA system, which was completely obsolete as well. So we hired Aramosa to do that. And then during the process, the topic of aeration came up. So at one time, blower was replaced at the plant. It's way too oversized. It's completely inefficient. Not sure how that all came to be, but really it's not doing what we want it to do. And we're having a hard time controlling the dissolved oxygen at the plant. So then we started looking at, okay, what can we do with these blowers? And then how we've gotten to today is now that we have a good idea where we're going, the engineer has now determined that it's not feasible to tack on additional MCC. So that's the motor control cabinet at the plant, which basically is the muscle behind the plant. It sends out all the electrical signals to all the equipment. It's not really feasible to tack that on. They believe we now have to replace the whole thing. So it's project creep is essentially what we're experiencing here. And it's an older plant and things need to be done. So I've reviewed this and I think the best course of action is to, because we've done all this engineering, is to tender all of this work and then structure the contract in such a way that if things are too expensive and we can't afford them, then we can start kind of paring stuff back to where we're only doing absolutely what we need to do. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Any questions?
Yeah, it's quite a read here on everything you just talked about. It talks about the plant being, 30 years old. We're talking about expanding the sewage system out to Reese's Corners. Some of the stuff I read, there's a lot of septic tanks in that area that are end of life. So we're going to be putting even more if we go with that project down to the plant. So with all of this stuff that you got here, there's a bunch of improvements there. It certainly will help out, but capacity wise and stuff, do you think spending all this money until we figure out what we're going to do at Reese's Corners area makes sense? Or
through the chair, the Reese's Corners, what we plan to do there would come to Wyoming. This one is the Plympton plant.
it's the Kamlaki one?
Yeah.
Why am I seeing Wyoming wage fund?
What number are you?
Yeah, am I on the wrong one?
You're on 7.4, I
Could
think.
be. We have a Reese's Corners
Oh, yeah,
report as well.
sorry, Bill.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm seeing W.
Happens when you give us too many reports.
Okay,
I'll come back to council if anything comes up.
yeah, okay, yeah, do that, right?
Well, the comment, if I may, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. De Silva, I think I like your plan. I think you've identified the avenue we need to go. We do know we have to do something out there until we can get further funding and further grants out there and all that out there. So, yeah, if you can do that and then come back to us and let us know, I think you can probably wrap this, what, couple months, you should be able to get the pricing in that.
Yeah, through the chair, like if we get a decision on this right now, I will follow up with Jacobs tomorrow. And our intent was always to kind of tender it towards the end of February. We're probably a little bit behind, so I would imagine we're probably pushing end of March. And the reality is none of this is going to get any cheaper for us. And the way to get the best value is to lump it all in together under one project. So that I think that that's the best way to go. But if we find ourselves where the tenders have come back way over their estimates and we're looking at ways to save money, I think we can peel a few things back if we absolutely have to.
I'm comfortable with that.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach as well.
How's with that? Anything? Good? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Silva. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to 7.4. Motion moved by Councilor Rolette, seconded by Committee Member DeVlute. That the report by Christopher Toulouse Jacobs dated January 27th, 2026, regarding the necessary repairs to the Trojan UV disinfection system at the Wyoming WWTP be reviewed and approved in the amount of $17,261.52. Any questions for Mr. De Silva on that one? Or not Mr. Silva, sorry, for Christopher, I suppose. Or Mr. Silva, you want to jump in? I'm seeing nothing though, so I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
You let them off too.
There's still some more questions we can probably ask later on.
Have a page.
I'll move on to the final staff report, 7.5. I have a motion moved by Committee Member Rapel, seconded by Mayor Atkinson. The report submitted by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated January 29th, 2026, regarding the Reese's Corners wastewater servicing study draft report be received as information. You want to add anything to this one, Mr. Silva? You want to just jump into questions?
We can jump into questions. I think this one is a little bit more self-explanatory.
Were there any questions? Again, another lengthy document, but good stuff. Are there any questions on my right?
Yeah, so through by routing the flows to Wyoming, will we be handcuffing ourselves in terms of the amount of flow that we can handle in Reese's Corners as opposed to building standalone plant?
So through the chair, they've identified in the study that as it stands right now, we could handle about 180 cubic meters from Reese's Corners, but that has more to do with capacity in the conveyance system as it gets from there to the plant. So it's not so much that we don't have capacity at the plant. We know that at some point, probably around 2039 or 2040, we're probably going to have to expand the Wyoming treatment plant. We know that we're going to have to rehabilitate the pump station that pumps all of the sewage to the Wyoming treatment plant. But this has more to do with, there's only, the gravity sewer that basically is, north of Broadway Street that conveys all the sewage all the way to the plant. That's where the restriction is.
So that like a bottleneck there.
That's where the bottleneck is, yeah. So without having to rip up, all of that sewer and replace it, we could convey about 180 cubic meters. And I mean, there's certain things we can do with design too by putting in holding tanks where we could convey more sewage, say overnight. We're not completely limited by 180 cubic meters, but that's kind of where they said
Handle the peak flows.
during the peak flows, that's what we can do.
We would be happy with that amount of flow from Reese's. Be able to handle that much capacity, like we don't see any issues with that.
So through the chair, under normal circumstances, given the population out there right now and all the commercial businesses and even some future commercial business, we don't think 180 cubic meters would be an issue. But if someone came in all of a sudden and they were a heavy water user and they needed a ton of sanitary, that's where it could chew up that number pretty quick.
Have we had any proposals like that floated around, or it's pretty quiet?
Not that I've heard.
So, great. Thanks, Paul. Maracus?
Just to dovetail on that, we have the proposal out there for possibly 2 more subdivisions, maybe 3 around Wyoming proper. Plus, we're gonna add 51 new units down at Gold Leaf. We know we can get the plan for that one, that's already underway, but with the capacity of, if hypothetically, if all those units filled up, all those houses and subdivisions, plus Reese's Corners, do we have the capacity to hold it at the plant?
Through the chair, that's a great question, and every single one of those developments was accounted for in this study. So even like Broadway Street development there behind Ron Clark's, that's 200 homes and realistically won't be built overnight. All of that was included. Gold Leaf was included. Plimpton Meadows was included. There's a townhouse development supposed to be going on at 400 Broadway. That was included. So everything was taken into account in this study. And even with all those at full build out, we would still be okay. Now, with that said, if we were pumping 180 cubic meters from Reese's Corners and all the developments we had on the books right now were constructed, we would be looking at that time to increase the capacity at the plant.
So long as you see that that's increasing and we can start putting money away for the renovations, or whatever you want to call it, at the plant, 5-10 years out, we'll have to start putting some funding away for that, but that's being considered. That's good.
I guess my question is going to be like, we're looking to the future for this Reese's Corners, but in order for development to take place out there, something's going to have to be done. No doubt about that. I don't know what the time frame is going to be, but, and I don't know how much money in the end it's going to cost, but it'd be significant. Bring it, it's in there, and
Yeah.
5 point some million. Well, then there's grants available and stuff for things like that too, right, for development? If you can win them.
If you can get them.
Yeah, right. The other thing, like, I don't know, my crystal ball would say when this is gonna be built, but, we're talking about, what would be the route of that line if it come up? Where would it be? Along the side of the highway, going out there? Like, we're talking about digging up the trail and making it wider and I'm thinking to myself, like, if this thing is, 5 years down the road, we're gonna spend a bunch of money widening the trail and putting a new trail in there. Should we be holding back on that?
So through the chair, I don't know when we would do this. If we would do this, that would be a conversation we'd have to have with council, and like you said, we don't just have $6 million for this laying around. So I think we would be heavily reliant on grants to get this done. But to answer your question on alignment, that's quite a wide road allowance, and I would probably look to construct it by directional drill. So I don't think the rehabilitation of the trail will have, like, I don't think there might be spots where it gets a little closer to the road where we might have to dig, but I don't think that that's going to be a conflict necessarily.
Here comes my third question. We got 18 acres out there that we look forward into doing something with, either severing it, commercial, putting different things in there. In order for that to go ahead, say somebody come in there and want to buy a couple of spots right away, can they still put septic systems in out there? Or is there some kind of enclosed system they can put in if they want to? I know what have we got, 3 septic tanks out there now? 2 or 3?
At least 2.
Yeah, is that still allowed?
I believe it is. If somebody came in and they had a proposal, they would need enough property.
Yeah.
That's an assessment that the building department makes. And in terms of like a holding tank, I know under certain circumstances, they'll allow them to do that as well, but that's not my particular area of expertise on.
Well, I know septics are discouraged, but your sewer systems, we've run into this before out in north end of Plympton, building new homes and putting septic tanks in, but so it's important to know because we're gonna develop that 18 acres and I think we'd like to do it as soon as possible.
Mhm.
We need to know the answer to the sanitary system, whatever it could be. But that could happen at any time. Somebody could walk in here with a commercial business and 2 or 3 of them, and that's gonna be the area of development, there's no doubt.
We'll open the door for them.
If they can have a septic tank.
I'm pretty sure they can.
Anyway, it's something we certainly need to know.
Would imagine if that parcel was municipal, had servicing for sanitary, it would make it that much more attractive to potential buyers than if they have to build something themselves.
Yeah. Yeah,
Certainly.
okay. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
And I guess my only other question there is, since this is such a long-term plan, if it did happen, we're still gonna have to place all those 2 septic systems. Did I read in here that the septic not in good shape, end of life?
So the one at the plaza that the town owns, they're functioning,
Okay.
they're functioning fine.
Okay.
It's more, private systems and stuff, they start to become end of life and then the people have to make a very important decision, like, do we spend $30,000-$40,000 on a new septic system, or is the town at some point gonna bring sewers in and allow us to connect?
Gotcha, okay. No other questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. There's nothing under section 8, so I'll move to section 9. I have a motion moved by Mayor Atkinson, seconded by Committee Member Riegel, that the minutes from the laws meeting be received for November 27th, 2025. Any questions on those minutes? Seeing nothing, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Nothing under section 10. Section 11.1, I have a motion moved by Committee Member Rapel, seconded by Mayor Atkinson, that the correspondence related to recommended reading and routine approval and information items not otherwise addressed by resolution be noted as received by the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee and filed accordingly. That is the 2 Jacobs monthly reports for November and December 2025, and the Operations Management International Canada DWQMS operational plan for Plympton-Wyoming water distribution system. Open up questions. We have Jacobs here with us. Any questions on those 2? Mayor Atkinson?
Yeah, if I may direct your attention to the December report. I noticed that we were not in compliance for the month of December with an exceedance reported to the MECP for total suspended solids. Do we have an alarm system on that? If I may direct that to Mr. Tillers, that would, we would be notified of that when that level, that percentage was getting higher?
So through the chair, no, we don't actually have a continuous monitor for suspended solids or total phosphorus at the facilities. So that is in-house testing that is completed as well as accredited lab testing. If we did look at installing continuous monitors, it's substantially expensive and repair costs would be astronomical.
So could you educate me, when they find that the level has gone high, what's a quick turnaround to get that back down? Is it like, as soon as they do the testing, they see it? Is it a daily testing, weekly testing? Once they see that and they bring it back down, or how does that work, sir?
So through the chair, we do solids testing in-house, as well as we send it out to the lab. Phosphorus testing, we do in-house daily. So generally speaking, staff will see those levels starting to rise, try to react to the situation as it is occurring. Sometimes it's a little later than it should be, depending on what the actual issue is. A lot of the times with the Wyoming plant, we find that the filter can be operating flawlessly and then it completely stops. Usually doesn't recover very quickly just because of the sand. As well as the backwash and wasting pumps, they kind of take a little bit to help, so.
So, well, if I may, so once you saw this, then staff jumped into action to make rectification on it and get it turned around. Thank you.
No, I was gonna ask the same question as the mayor, but because I just been reading here on December the 28th, the overflow and it went into Arrow Creek. So what are the consequences of that? It's just a report, they don't. No fine, there's no warning.
So through the chair, through ministry guidelines, we do have to let Spills Action Center and the Lambton Public Health Unit know every time that we do have a pump station overflow. It is entering a environmental creek and eventually ending out in the lake. To date, I don't know that we've ever had a repercussion to it. It's not to say that that can't happen though, depending on the circumstance. So generally speaking, with pump station 2, when it overflows, we have had a rain event, snow melt event. Our flows are just too high for that pump station. If it was a situation where we were found to be negligent, pump's not operating properly, not performing regular checks, then that would leave us into potential environmental fines, but like I said, to date, I don't believe that we've ever received any, so.
Sir, Councilors, Mr. Tusila's got something as well.
Yeah, if I could just provide some additional context through the chair. I think this drives home just how important it is to look at inflow and infiltration. Like this committee is over the past year, we've talked about this a lot, and you'll see something across your desks here fairly shortly about a plan that we have to start eliminating that from the system. So it's not just about basements backing up, it's about environmental concerns as well. And not that we want overflows to happen by any means, but they do, and they happen at treatment plants as well. I would imagine many treatment plants in this area probably overflow when it rains. So they're not particularly uncommon, although they're preventable, and we're working towards preventing them.
Where are 2 and 4 stations again?
The chair, pump station 2 is at the very end of Queen Street by the Maples Maitland roundabout. And then pump station 4 is just in behind the Kanmaki Community Center.
So these are the ones that went high, so.
And for additional context, pump station 2 is on the higher end of capacity currently because of all recent development in years, in previous years, so it tends to be the area that we see the most overflows, the most common issues. But like Paul had said, that we are trying to mitigate that risk of overflow, so.
Okay. Thanks.
Regarding the drinking water, systems report, I was just wondering what's the procedure for having staff review that to be, because I know it took me a few nights to sleep to get through it. Just wondering what the procedure is to have that read and that it's known as to how that system works, the operating.
Yeah, through the chair, like I have to sign off on it, so I definitely have to read it. And I was going to just throw some kudos towards Jacob's Way. They just recently revised that report and kind of changed the format of it, to make it a little bit more readable and digestible. So I just want to thank them for that, because I did read that before I signed it. Well, they've been working on it for a little while, and I think I got a copy of it sometime before Christmas, and then just recently signed the final version like this week. So yeah, we do read it.
Yeah. There's a smaller note too. I noticed the footer said Oil Springs, not.
Oh, did it? A bit, well, so they updated theirs as well, so
I
I
figured, yeah, that was my replace all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not the right footer.
They probably have a few Plympton-Wyoming ones in there.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Good. All right, nothing further on that. We have the motion on the floor. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to section 12, open up for new business related to environmental services. Start on my right, any business? Any members on my left? Councilor Willett?
We talked about this before, but I'm gonna bring it up again. Commercial businesses and recycle. Appreciate the fact that it's not our responsibility. I get that, but here's how we rename this committee to be the environmental committee. I think it's an extremely important, environmentally speaking, that our recycle isn't going into garbage pails and not going to recycle. And what I'm hearing is that a lot of places don't have anybody picking up the recycle anymore, so where else are they gonna put it? In the garbage. So I don't know what we can do about it, but we certainly need to support recycling. My goodness, we've come a long ways, a long ways. And it just didn't make sense when the government come along, took it over, that's fine. But when they didn't include commercial to recycle, it ends up in the garbage pail. That doesn't make sense. So, like I say, I don't know, it's environmental committee. I thought I'd bring it back up again. And, I don't know what the answer is.
Chair, through you, if I can ask Councilor Willett, when you say that it's not getting picked up, is it like at residences or is it businesses that
No
are?
residents are getting picked up. No, it's commercial. Because they're not part of the circular plan. They gotta hire their own companies.
Yeah, because I think we have what, 3 options? 3 companies that would do that. That's correct, is it not?
There was an issue there.
Yeah.
So let's jump in for a second.
Yeah, it's I had a really good animated conversation with somebody about this today. And I agree with you 100%. And it was very short-sighted in our opinion that the government would exclude commercial businesses from recycling, because that puts them in a really difficult position. Because you're right, why wouldn't they just throw it in the garbage if they have to pay to have someone collect it? Now, I did reach out to a couple of companies before we sent that letter out to them, and they did say that they would provide those services. The problem is that I heard today was, well, MTerra is not willing to come out and just collect for one business, and they can't collect it at the same time as they're collecting the residential recycling, because apparently there's cameras on the truck that track them. Whatever. Our issue as a town now is that we use a user pay system, as everyone is aware. So everyone pays for their garbage. In other municipalities, that comes off the general levy. So other places like Petrolia, like the city of Sarnia, and like St. Clair Township have just decided to absorb that cost of recycling into the general levy. So the taxpayers are just paying it. In order for us to do this, we would have to reach out to every single one of the businesses, ask them if they want recycling services, find a contractor to provide those services, and then charge them and manage that program almost like a middleman in this situation. And I think that that's a lot of work. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm looking at it and I'm going, wow, how do I even start something like that? So that's why I kind of left it with, we're out of the recycling game. The province has made a decision that they've made. So let's leave it to the commercial businesses to determine what they need to do. But that is causing some issues. I acknowledge that. People are just gonna throw it in the garbage.
Well, Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe the onus is on mayor to deal with this through the MPP. Because would it not make perfect sense for like, is it Mterra that's doing the for circuit? They're trying to buy every business in this community, picking up the residential garbage. For them to actually pick it up and take a fee for it? Wouldn't that make sense? Cause you're right, they're not gonna send a truck out from Sarnia or someplace to go pick up down at the or the restaurant down there. One place, like unless they have a bigger place to pick the stuff up, they're not gonna make any money, right? So where's it going? It's going in the garbage. I mean, let's face it, it's going in the garbage. There's no sense beating around the bush here. And that's just not right. So as a community and a responsibility for the environment, I don't know, we'll have to ask some more questions to, I don't know whether it's the government or through the mayor or what it is, but it's a question that's got to be asked. They may tell us to go pound salt to do exactly the same as what you just mentioned with Sarnia, absorb it into that, but then you got to find a contractor that's willing to come out in a small community.
If I may, through the chair. Getting a contractor to do it is not gonna be a problem. Both Marcotte and Mterra have already told us they'll give us a price to
Okay.
collect all of the commercial recycling. The question becomes, who pays for it?
Base, yeah.
Is the town gonna absorb that cost? Given our user pay system, I would think not. And then how do we charge them? And then how do we manage it? Maybe they don't want to, the next year, they don't want to take advantage of our program anymore. So then that changes the contract terms. And I want to be part of a solution here. Don't get me wrong. I'm not afraid of a little bit of work, but I think this is quite a bit of work. And so I'm open to suggestions because I would like to see this resolved.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is for sure, but I do know one thing. All that recycle, which are a lot of tonnage, is going into Marcotte's garbage trucks. I don't know if they get paid or they have to pay by the tonnage or whatever. That recycle is not going to Mterra, it's going to the garbage, which is the garbage trucks, and they probably pay by the ton to dump it, so maybe it's costing us money in the long run. We're having to increase our prices for garbage pickup. And here we are, commercial, putting stuff into residential garbage. So it should have been addressed before, not you, Paul, but the government, why they did that, I don't know.
And I do know, there's a few members of the big city mayors I've seen online that are writing letters constantly to the premier.
Okay.
So I would suggest they're probably gonna get there year before a little guy like us will, but I've seen some of the big city mayors are writing about they're unhappy with this new system. So I don't think the onus falls fully on Mr. Mayor. It sounds like the big city mayors are also throwing around weight.
So there's strong mayor power, I mean, that gives you the power.
So I think it'll be interesting to see how they respond.
See that clause.
Yeah. Anyways, we need to put it out there. We're an environmental committee. We'll leave it at that for now. What the answer is, but
See how the province reacts.
answer is put it in the garbage.
Yeah, and through the chair, if I may, just one more point, like we don't collect all commercial garbage. Most of them take care of it on their own. They have their own dumpsters. That doesn't resolve the issue if they're just gonna throw their recycling in their dumpster. It doesn't necessarily cost us anything, but it's not the right thing to do environmentally.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I could do is maybe talk to Marcotte, talk to Mterra and see roughly what it would cost. Bring that back for information. At least we'll know what it's gonna cost. And then if we want to push the subject a little bit more, if we engage with the business community a little bit and see what their expectations are, I'm willing to do that. I just don't want to put us in a situation where we're managing something that becomes a little bit difficult on our end to do, because we would literally just be exchanging money. So we'd be taking money and exchanging it, and that's it.
No, and I don't think, I want to say you put in a position that you're having to deal with. This is the provincial government that's done this, not Plympton-Wyoming. So I don't want to put you in that position, but like I said, repeating myself here, but we're environmental committee. We need to clearly let the public know what's happening. Simple as that, and let maybe the government deal with it. And as the chair said, it is being dealt with by some,
They're getting pressure, that's for sure.
so maybe it'll resolve it. I don't, we'll see. Thank you, sir.
I have nothing related to environmental this time.
I will, anything from, oops. Mr. Silva's got bad news probably, like you heard.
Oh, bad news. Yeah, so we did just recently hear that our CHIF, which is Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund grant was turned down. But it wasn't, they didn't turn us down like other grants do. They seem to leave the door open that, okay, you didn't get it this time, but we got a bunch of money coming down the pipeline. So I'm at least somewhat optimistic that there's gonna be another opportunity for us here shortly. And that maybe the application is gonna look very similar, so it will cut down on the amount of time it takes to do as well. So bad news, but also small amount of optimism there.
We'll keep trying. There's lots of money flying around and there's some flying around here, so I don't see why we can't get any of it, so. All right, thanks, everybody. So I have a motion here. Moved by Mayor Atkinson, seconded by Committee Member Rapel, that the Plympton-Wyoming Environmental Services Committee regular meeting be adjourned until the next regular meeting to be held March 5th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Favor? That's carried. Thanks for watching, everybody.